So I'm going to start the webinar. We're fortunate to have three great guests this afternoon, and we'll get to those guys in a few minutes. This is webinar number 27, lucky 27, as Kelly says about all of these webinars. This is part of a series via CSUB, Bakersfield Small Business Development Center, otherwise known as the SBDC. This series theme is Managing Your Business in a Pandemic Webinar Series. I'm Keith Brice. I think this is my fourth time hosting this for Kelly. Kelly needs a little microphone break. I don't know if it's the result of the smoke or fatigue. I'd like to think he'd have the ability to get away from the smoke somewhere, but unless he's going to leave the West Coast, there is smoke throughout the state. Got to tell you a little bit about the SBDC, and you've heard me say this in the past. In my opinion, they are one of the best organizations that are offering free services to small businesses throughout the country. Our SBDC here is one of 50. There are 50 in all 50 states. This is the Kern County SBDC. It's part of the Central California region. And I'm going to try to, my test is always to guess all the regions. I know they're in San Luis Obispo, Monterey, Modesto, Merced, Clovis, and obviously Kern County. The SBDC here, we service the Inyo and Pneumonia counties. I encourage all of our listeners out there, whether you're on live or you pick up the recording at a later date, reach out to the SBDC. If you're looking at a strategic plan, if you're looking at, some of the information you'll hear today on how these small businesses were, successful in operating, during the pandemic, or how they were operating before. A lot of that assistance can be had for free via the SBDC. Also, look out for upcoming SBDC events. The Capital Summit. We have had Capital Summits, and I say we because I've participated in the majority of them. We've had Capital Summits in Kern County, Inyo, Mono. We've had them in smaller cities. Tehachapi, I think we did one in Shafter, in East Kern, and soon to have one on the west side. So I strongly encourage you to participate in any of these programs that are out there. So I'm going to share my screen here real quick. Hopefully you can see it. Talk about the SBDC, and yeah, I was spot on the counties. As you can see, there are other counties that the SBDC may touch on. There are other SBDCs that can address those areas. These things aren't done without sponsors. We're proud of the fact that Mid-State Development is a sponsor. The County of Kern is a sponsor. CSUB, School of Business and Public Administration, is a sponsor. The State of California, the Governor's Office, and Blue Tech Valley. They have been very important in allowing these type of events to occur throughout the year. So if you have a chance, reach out to those sponsors and thank them. So a couple things. I want to talk about, what's up, what we're going to talk about today. We're talking about the Kern Recovers, additional funding, new stimulus funding, EIDL reminder, PPP forgiveness, and then we'll roll into our guests. One of the things I want to see if I can do is a poll question. I always like to keep the poll questions fairly light. And let's see if we can do this. Given the fact that the US Open is starting tomorrow, I wanted to throw out a poll question as to what course hosted the US Open the most times. Pebble Beach, Baltusarrar, Oakmont, or Wingfoot? So I'm gonna give you a few minutes on that and see what golfers we have out there. And Rick, I know you're a golfer, so I think you're allowed to participate.
I would love to participate in this, but it said panelists cannot vote. Took it away from me.
Yeah, that's correct. So we're going to give it 30 more seconds here. We got Pebble Beach, and hopefully nobody's cheating out there and going online and looking at this. But we have Pebble Beach leading with 66%. Baltusrol is 3%. Oakmont is 32%, and Wingfoot is 0. I can't believe I couldn't have tricked somebody into taking Wingfoot. So I'm going to end the poll right now, and we have Pebble Beach clearly leading. We have Oakmont second, Baltusrol third, and nobody for Wingfoot. Well, the correct answer is Oakmont. And I was fortunate enough to go to Oakmont the last time they hosted the U.S. Open. Oakmont's right outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, with the high school outside of there. So it was a real treat, and it is rated one of the toughest golf courses in the country. So for those that got it, congratulations. Okay, want to cover some things that are topical, and the first thing is the Kern Recovers additional funding. I don't know if anybody read the paper or listened to the news last night, but the Board of Supervisors agreed to a memorandum of understanding with the city that they're effectively reviving and refunding slightly the Kern Recovers program. Those that are out there, hopefully we had some of our small businesses that were able to take advantage of that. That was a program that the county did, and we were really happy that they stepped up and put that program in place fairly quickly. It was about 30 million that went real quick, primarily Kern County-based businesses. And it was administered through 3 local lenders, which is another great thing about our community. They were able to reach out to Valley Strong Credit Union, Valley Republic Bank, and Mission Bank to administer the Kern Recovers program. And I've talked to all 3 lenders. In fact, I had 2 of them on a webinar a few weeks ago, and they were happy to step up, happy to assist the county in the program. Well, the city also received some of the CARES funds, and I'm proud of the fact that the city, rather than trying to reinvent the wheel somewhat, they looked at what the county did in the Kern Recovers program and said, you know, that's a pretty darn good program. Let's come to an agreement where we can fund some additional loans. And I think the amount was $3 million offered through the Kern Recovers program with, I think it was $5 million, with $3 million offered to the small businesses, primarily looking at small businesses that were shut out of the PPP. Also $2 million for nonprofits operating in the Bakersfield metro area. And there's a little bit of admin money. So, kudos to the city and the county for reaching that agreement to participate in the particular program. Unfortunately, my understanding is there are several applications that had been pending on the Kern Recovers before, and there's a high probability those funds will go fairly quickly. So again, if you've not applied, and on the off chance that the prior applicants are not taking any of that Kern Recovers money, reach out to one of the 3 lenders I had mentioned and see if there's some availability for you. New stimulus funding. You see a big question mark. It's something that if you follow the news, and in our case here at Mid-State Development, our trade association, consistently gives us updates. It's somewhat stalled. The House had a bill, and that was stalled, and then the Senate Republicans tried to do what they call a skinny stimulus, and that was what was stalled. I think we're going to find something that's going to come out here in the next couple weeks, I would hope. But there was something that I saw that was interesting that passed my way, and I want to read it to you real quick. There's a group in the House. It's March to Common Ground Problem Solvers Caucus. It's a bipartisan group, 25 Dems and 25 Republicans, and they floated out some solutions. Again, now, like anything in the political arena, you can recommend things. Whether it gets approved is to be determined. But I found their proposal kind of interesting. What they tried to do is, first off, look at what the problems were. And one of the problems, and again, focused primarily on the small business arena, most small businesses who had received the PPP loans have exhausted those resources. Many of them, literally millions of their employees are still hanging in the balance. And further, there are certain distressed communities, and there are people of color that were somewhat shut out of the program. So what they did, and again, it's kind of simple, but sometimes the best things come out of simple solutions. And they're looking at 240 billion, and I apologize for throwing billions and trillions around, but it's kind of scary, some of the dollars that are out there. But they're looking at about 240 billion for PPP, primarily as a second loan, a little bit more flexibility. They're looking for full transparency, simplify the forgiveness. I don't even want to get into the forgiveness under this webinar because it's still somewhat unknown, and they really want to prioritize distressed businesses. The other piece of what they're looking at is if you recall, when the PPP program ended, there were still PPP funds available. So they're looking at, I think it's about 145 billion that they want to reappropriate. And then they're looking at about 95 billion in new money for some small business, small community banks, more money for the EIDL program. And then there's a $50 billion targeted employee retention tax credit. So again, those are kind of simple answers, and don't know if that's going to come about, but I would like to see a lot of that to be adopted. Got the EIDL reminder. As you've heard, I think the EIDL loan is one of the best loans out there. You still have until the end of the year to apply for the EIDL loan. It's going to be interesting because the EIDL loan is for disasters, and the pandemic was determined to be a disaster. But now we have the wildfires, and then we're going to have the floods in the South. And traditionally, that's where a lot of the disaster loans went. So not sure how much is still going to be available for the pandemic, whether they're going to pivot and shift some of that money towards whether it's the wildfires or to the flood victims. Reminder on that EIDL loan, that's a 3.75% fixed rate, no payments for the first year, 30-year amortization, and more importantly, there's it's an easy application. The SBA has done several Zoom workshops and webinars on the EIDL program. If you've been turned down for the EIDL program, or if you think you've been shorted, there are certain appeal processes that are available. PPP forgiveness, it's still somewhat unknown. I've been telling as many folks as I can that reaches out to me, uh, you don't have to be in a huge hurry to rush to get your forgiveness. If you've met the current criteria, your loan in all probabilities will be forgiven. So if you're not the first company in to get the forgiveness, it's not like it's not going to happen. So as they come through with the final guidance or additional guidance, it may be easier for you guys to do that. So that's enough of me so far. I really am excited about our small business guests that we have. I will tell you up front, these are folks that I've dealt with here at Midstate, so I'm somewhat biased. I can vouch for their characters and say they are characters. But having said that, I want to take some time to introduce them. They have great stories, how much they want to share with you on how they started, where they came from. I'll leave that up to them. We have some questions that I sent out to them. Whether we get to all of them, we'll try to, and more importantly, we'll try to field some of your appropriate questions that you may have. So the first guest that I want to start with is Rick Jhaj. That's a great looking picture of you, Rick, right there, by the way. And I'm going to introduce them all and then start with give them an opportunity to talk about their business. Rick is the executive with over 12 years experience of owning and operating commercial construction business, multiple national brand quick service restaurants, and countryside market and restaurants. I'm just not going to stop here, but we did sort of a walkthrough earlier, and it was kind of cool in that Rick indicated to Eric Giddens, who you're going to hear earlier, that yeah, we carry your beer in his restaurants and stores, and I'm sure David does the same thing. So again, that sort of gives you a flavor of Kern County supporting Kern County businesses. One other business that Rick's involved with is commercial construction, specializing in ground up custom builds, remodels, TIs. He's busy in that area, along with the fact that he's still involved with Subway, Pizza Hut restaurants, and obviously the countryside market. Rick did neglect to indicate that he is the proud owner of a car wash in Taft. So with that, Rick, I'm gonna let you talk a little bit about anything I've missed in your business. Then I'll move on to the next panelist.
Well, Keith, number one, thank you for that very kind introduction. I want to start off with saying, I appreciate the invite and the ability to speak today on this webinar. I'm actually the Chief Development Officer as well for our company, Countryside Construction and Countryside Corporation. We are a family-owned business here in Kern County. Our father is a patriarch that, the CEO of the company, and then all of us children and family work together. And we all have our parts, and we all try doing what we can to make sure we're successful. We specialize in restaurants, gas stations. We also are one of the only Taco Bell franchisees in the county here, which we're very proud of being. Our countryside construction our countryside market and restaurants are all throughout Kern County, and we've been very blessed to have a strong following here in Kern County, and to really get the support of our local community. My dad has always been very excited about Bakersfield and Kern County and developing here. So we've really have tried focusing more on the growth in rural communities, to where a lot of other businesses normally don't tend to come to. Places like the smaller communities surrounding Kern County, the outskirts, but those have been our success. Those are places where we have really thrived. And we started off with a single store. Me and my sister and our family working, and working after school, after hours, and now we've been blessed to grow to multiple locations, close to almost 500 employees working for us currently, and just excited to be here.
Thank you, Rick. Oh, David, I almost skipped you there. I want to introduce David Dobbs. David, as you'll see on the screen, is a proud 08er. North High grad, I'm assuming, David. Shake your head if that's correct. David's been in the wine and spirits business since 1984. In 1989, David took over managing Red Carpet Wine in Glendale. For those that aren't in the retail wine business, Red Carpet's it's a top dog. I mean, it's one of the largest, or was one of the largest wine stores in California. So having that background is perfect. David takes great pride in making long-term relationships with folks in Napa and in the premier wineries up there. He opened Imbibe in 2009, and that's already a leader in California. David, tell us a little more about yourself.
Well, I'm married. I have 2 grown. I originally, when I came to Bakersfield, I left town in '84, came back in '06. I thought I was going to become a wine broker because I've done the retail thing, and took a year off to get my thoughts together. Got in my car one day and drove around town and to kind of look at different locations where I could self-peddle my wine, because I knew all the winery owners up in the valley. So they needed somebody in the Central Valley to represent them. Got in my car and I realized very quickly that there's very few locations that deal with the type of wines that I wanted to deal with. We have 3 country clubs in town. We got maybe 3 nice wine shops, and then we have maybe a half a dozen restaurants. But with 12 accounts, you can't make a living. So it became apparent to me to really look at maybe the possibility of opening another wine shop. So that's what I did. I learned from the things I did in Los Angeles, the mistakes I made sure I didn't do those again. With your help, I purchased the building I'm in, and Imbibe was created. So we've been open since 2009. We got a great family feel. My team, I don't have any turnover. I'm grateful for that, but that's for many reasons. We take care of our employees. I love what I do, and God has gifted me with a successful business. So grateful for all of it.
Thank you, David. Eric, this is a great success story, and I don't want to take too much of or steal too much of Eric's thunder, but Eric is co-founder and brewer and head janitor at Kern River Brewing Company. And I think that head janitor can be said for both Rick and David and most small business owners that I know, that you got to be able to do everything. And with his wife, Rebecca, they can do everything. They started with a small brew pub in 2006. And then if you've not been up to their facility, it's a nice facility up on the river. So make sure you go up there. The one thing that I know he's proud of is the fact that they won 4 medals at the Great American Beer Festival. Those that are beer people and spirits, as David shakes his head, that's a big deal. It's not like it's only 2 or 3 breweries there. So the fact that they did that out of Kern River Brewery says a lot about Eric and Rebecca. And I think I'll let Eric talk a little bit about his background and how they got started.
Thank you, Keith. First of all, thank you for having me. Really excited to be on here with Rick and David, who are also great customers of mine. And unlike those guys who are pretty sharp business people, I am not. I was actually an oceanographer before we opened our business. I got my PhD down in San Diego, and my wife, we were both kayakers at the time as well. In fact, Rebecca was a silver medalist in the 2004 Olympics. And I asked her what she wanted to do, and she said, move to Kernville. And I didn't know how to be an oceanographer in Kernville, so we invented the brewery, basically. So that was back in 2005. we opened, and it's been a long road. Like I said, I'm not a very good businessman. We've made a lot of mistakes, but we've made some good beer and some good friends in the meantime. So here we are, 15 years later. And as you mentioned, Keith, last year we won a bunch of medals at Great American Beer Festival, and we're actually named Brewery of the Year for the whole country. So that was pretty exciting, and we're really proud of that.
Thank you. Okay, I'm gonna get into some of the questions here, and the first question I have for the panel, and again, everybody doesn't have to answer it, or you may want to answer it. The first one is, how was your business position going into the pandemic? And then second part of it is, what were your immediate and lingering issues after March 19th? That seems like when the world stopped, but whoever wants to start.
Well, I could jump in, Keith, if that's all right.
Yeah, perfect.
On your question, as far as being a position going to the pandemic, we were pretty fiscally sound heading to the pandemic. Business was good. But the lingering issue situation, for us personally, I would say, we were somewhat blessed. We didn't have any lingering issues after that time frame because we were very proactive from the beginning. Our employees and our customers were kind of at the forefront for us. So we actually secured personal protective equipment for all of our employees. And we did this when there really was not a mass shortage or a run on these items. We wanted to make sure that we were kind of ahead of the curve. But if anything, the lingering, I would say, is I believe the biggest issue that we had and most business owners had was uncertainty of what's to come. Uncertainty is never really a good thing for any businesses. And as an owner, we should always try to find a way to minimize this. So we did our best to kind of get ahead of the pandemic, and I believe that's what helped us.
Yeah, I'll jump in here.
Go ahead.
We had a little bit of a different experience. So going into the pandemic, we were thumping. We were just named Brewery of the Year. We had our spring Citra release. Everything was going great. And then the next day, everything is shut down, and literally people are canceling orders for beer. And I've got over 10,000 gallons of beer sitting in tanks and just wondering what to do with them. Over 50% of our business before this whole thing happened was draft beer. And we went to basically 0 draft beer customers. So that was a huge challenge for us. And it's still taking a long time to figure out because things opened and they close and then they reopened and they close again. And you can't just, pull cans out of thin air. You have to order these, often 2 months ahead of time. So that was a big challenge for us. We've basically started putting almost everything in cans now, regardless. But that was, our heads were spinning for sure, right around the end of March.
And I'll piggyback on top of that. My story is very similar to Eric's in the sense that we had the best fourth quarter in 2019 that we've had since we've been open. We had a great January. February was very strong. But my challenge was the unknown. I came back from vacation. I left the country for 3 weeks, and prior to leaving, there was a little bit of talk about COVID. And when I came back, my plane was the only plane that landed in the international terminal at LAX. So I knew something was up. And talking to my staff, the uncertainty was our biggest concern. Like Rick said, we were financially sound, but just the uncertainty put a lot of stress on myself and my employees.
Thank you. Were you closed at any time? I'll start with you, David.
No, I'm not going to argue it. We were deemed an essential business. I'm not going to argue with the state or the feds about that, but we were not. We shortened our hours quite a bit because the demand wasn't there, and I just didn't feel good about staying open the long hours. So we just tightened up our hours is all we did, but we haven't been closed this entire time.
Eric?
So we have 2 parts of our business. We have the brewery, and then we have the hospitality, or the 2 restaurants that we have here on site. The restaurants, we were able to keep open. I think we been closed a total of 2 days since this all started for various reasons. But the brewery we went dark for about a week or so. As I mentioned, we had 10,000 gallons of beer in tanks and no idea where to put it. And beer is a perishable product. So we had to figure out for a while what we were going to do. we sort of kept the employees employed as best we could because we were trying to figure everything out. Didn't want to let people go. But the brewery definitely stopped production for a couple of weeks. So that was definitely a challenge. And then once things open again, we've gone through various stages of partial openings, no indoor seating, only outdoor seating. So it's just been kind of an influx for the last 6 months.
Rick, I know you got a number of businesses. Were any closed at any time?
Yeah, as David mentioned, we were fortunate that majority of our business were considered essential. So we did have to close dining room areas, but we were able to keep locations with drive-throughs, and curbside pickup actually was key for us. But we did actually have one business that was closed, and that was our Countryside Car Wash in Taft. We had to close because the car wash at the time were kind of in a gray area, and due to the limited amount of information that was provided by the county, it was doing its best to enforce these guidelines that were actually so new. So this is the moment we actually took to kind of be proactive for our own business. If we did nothing, we would actually stayed closed, actually probably even until now. So would have cost us the same amount of our membership, but it's actually so vital to the car wash business. So actually what I did, I decided to be informed and do my own research. Actually, I went through the guidelines that was provided by the state actually in great detail. And I actually found a few provisions that clarified the use of car washes under an automotive section. I had to find a way to actually get us back open. So I spoke with environmental health and the county, and I explained to them these reasons for the state guidelines as how car wash met the criteria that allowed actually express car wash facilities to open during the pandemic. And we worked on putting together guidelines, and for the county, would allow us, car washes to operate. So with that initiative and the willingness actually of the county to help businesses, we were able to get our site back open. But not only ourselves, but these guidelines actually were then provided to all express car washes like Mr. Car Wash as well to allow them to open back up in Kern County under these clarified guidelines. And then actually with that, I took these guidelines and sent them out to other express car wash owners throughout other counties to help provide them with the same opportunity we had. But it was difficult, but I thank the county for helping and working with us to get us back open.
Yeah, one thing I will tell you, and I've heard this with my colleagues up and down the state and other areas, the fact that our county is willing to work with small businesses, up to a point of them getting in some serious trouble, it's impressive. And I know they're limited on what they can and can't do, but our experience with our small businesses that both the county and city they'll try to make it work. Somehow they will. So what were the first steps that a small business owner you took at the beginning of the state shutdown? You covered a little bit of this, but maybe a little more detail on that. You want to start it, Eric?
Yeah, we had to sort of take our current business model and throw it out the window. We were 50% draft, 50% bottles and cans, and we had to basically go entirely into cans. And not only that, but we plan out our production schedule for months. We had to just scrap the production schedule and try to figure out what people were going to buy. So the fun part is we came up with all these different new beers. So that was the exciting part. And then the challenge was getting it out into market. Many distributors had sort of shut down. So we started doing online sales for shipping. And that turned out to be great for us right off the bat and really helped us stabilize, I think. We've always been allowed to ship our beer, but it's never been a big part of our model, mainly because we don't want to step on distributors' toes and just the effort it goes to do it. But that became our lifeline, so to speak, right off the bat.
Good. David?
As I mentioned earlier, I just got back from vacation, so I was still on vacation mode, not quite going up to speed on a lot of these things. But, I quickly realized that I could fund my payroll for a couple months, but it was pretty apparent was what I was reading and hearing on the news that this is going to go on for a while. So my concern was, how am I going to go fight and find some ways to keep my employees employed? So what I did for the most part was really interview guys like yourself and different bankers and different business owners, and get on the internet and just try to find how financially we can, get through this in the long term. So what I kept hearing about a stimulus package that was going to come down the line. And so I just had my faith. I kept all my employees employed. We didn't work. They got paid for what they used to work prior to the virus. We obviously had less hours to be open, but I kept everybody paid, and then the stimulus package was announced, and with gratitude, that has enabled me to keep everybody on staff and pay them the hours they had before the virus. So that was probably the biggest change, was finding ways to pay them long term.
Rick, anything you want to add in this area?
Yeah, kind of what Dave mentioned as well too. We were blessed to be essential, but our immediate first steps actually with the safety of our employees and our customers. We took the angle of, we want to keep all of our employees on staff, which we did, but we had to be proactive. This meant educating ourselves, educating our employees. So we took early steps actually in February to get all of our sites prepared with, protective personal equipment. We made gloves mandatory. We went on purchase N95 masks for all of our employees. We put plexiglass in all of our cashier areas. We implemented strict cleaning guidelines for all of our surfaces. And we even put markers on the ground to have the social distancing for our customers. We wanted to make sure that we could kind of be ahead of the curve and keep the process going. And we prepared and invested not because we were told to, but because it was kind of put our safety above all else for our employees and our customers. And I think that the issue with all of this situation was this pandemic was the fear. Fear causes such uncertainty. Mm-hmm. But being educated on something helps reduce that fear of something, right? So we felt it was important to educate our employees and provide them with the tools to have a safe working environment, which would lead to better business. And actually a few weeks later, Taco Bell and other national brands started making masks mandatory after all that. So we kind of took that initiative to kind of be ahead of that for all of our employees and customers.
Good. So this is sort of a wish list type of question, but if you guys were in charge, what would you have done in a stimulus package? And is there anything specifically you would like to see in the next stimulus bill? David, I'll let you see if you can tackle a little bit of that.
Yeah, pretty simple. I give this a little thought prior, but I've since this whole COVID, I've lost one employee, and that was his choosing. But the bottom line is, and I've heard this from other business owners, unemployed people make more from the government than they do working for us. And so I would somehow write the new stimulus that if you have a job provided for you and you got the same amount of hours, that you couldn't benefit by getting unemployed. That concerns me. And as I talk to other business owners, a lot of guys are having a hard time getting their people to come back, because eventually that's going to go away, but they don't see it. They don't see the long term of it. They just want the money now.
Eric?
Yeah, I'm going to echo a little bit what David said. I think moving forward, we need some sort of incentive to hire people back. We lost a lot of people initially, employees by choice. We said, do you want to work? Do you not want to work? And a lot of them took the option of not working. And then we were left sort of shorthanded on just our general staff. I think, a lot of people chose not to work because they were afraid of getting the virus, or they had family members, or they had kids they needed to now, keep track of because school was canceled. So it's a complicated question, but somehow getting people back to work and doing it through the businesses and not so much, through unemployment, I think that's probably a good idea. I think the PPP was really nice. It definitely helped settle our business, and it made me, not watch the clock so much, not worry about just the stability of our business, and allowed me to put the employees first and their needs. And I think moving forward, that's probably a good way to approach this, because everyone's scared, everyone's freaking out, and we need to put everyone's interest first and get this done.
Okay, Rick, you want to add anything?
Yeah, I echo exactly what David and I talked about. Those are very issues we're all dealing with. And moving forward in the future, stimulus package. I mean, if anything, there's some things I would say should be looked at. The time of funds being spent. If we learn anything from this thing's not going away in a few months. Have you heard? Winter's coming, right? So this is going to lead to more uncertainty. I think you need to give business owners more time to allocate the funds, to give them a chance to get through the difficult times, at least 6 months at a minimum. And the other thing I think would be is, how it was looked at for small business owners with the ability to keep employees on staff. We were blessed enough to keep all of our employees on staff, but other businesses were not so fortunate. And it's hard to keep a full staff if you don't have the sales to support it. Mm-hmm. So I don't believe any business owner wants to minimize their staff. If you have customers coming to the door, you want to be able to provide the service to those customers. So I think if it could be looked at more of business work off percentages, we work off food costs, labor costs, name a few. If small business owners can keep a similar percentage total base, I believe, of their sales volume as they did prior to the pandemic, I believe that's probably a more realistic approach for business owners to succeed without having unrealistic guidelines looming over them. But to be honest, it's easy to look back and be critical of the package. Things like we're talking about, the money being spent the first 2 months, employee counts. But the truth is the package was really put together quickly, by our electeds, and it was processed to the masses in the U.S. within a few months. This was really something very unprecedented. This money helped business survive, and this money helped people keep food on the table. So I truly actually commend our local banks, Keith, yourself, the SBA, for taking these funds and proceeding and processing so many loans and so much money in such a short period of time. I think it really helped.
Yeah, Rick, unfortunately, the negative always gets the publicity, and you're gonna have fraud, you're gonna have issues on any program, and especially you got a program you rolled out in less than 30 days. Again, I'm always been proud to be associated with the SBA, and could not have been more prouder than the fact that they were able to put together this program with flaws, no doubt about that, but in such a short period of time, because historically, the SBA and the government, they don't roll out programs in 30 days. It's typically 3 years. So having said that, it was a good job.
Yeah, definitely. I agree 100%.
Okay, so I don't know if we want to tackle this, but I think David, you may have covered a little bit of this before, but when it comes to aid loans, there was some confusion about what needed to be paid back and when. How should a small business approach their repayment plans? And I know Eric and I have had that conversation. I will brag about Eric early on. He did a spreadsheet and he did an analysis on what made sense for them to do it and what not. And Eric, I mean, I look at small businesses out there of like what Rick did of getting car washes eligible, but as little as doing a spreadsheet to figure out, okay, does this make sense? That's the initiative that folks take out there. So having said that, again, give me some thoughts on how you would look at the repayment approach.
Well, again, the guidelines were kind of stated, but they've changed since the time we got funded originally. I keep hearing about extensions. I keep reaching out to my institution that I've got the funds from, and like you mentioned earlier in the introductions, there's still some uncertainty, or they really don't know how long we have to spend the monies. I've kept very detailed records. I'm very confident that I can, based on the original guidelines, that we've spent all that plus more. The one thing that comes to mind that we were talking that I didn't hit on earlier, but I would hope if there's another stimulus package, I'm sure all of us have been affected. I had a lot of waste. I mean, a lot of things that were, a lot of food in the kitchen, because we do have a kitchen, a lot of wine that's sitting on my wine bar, beer on draft, all that stuff being shut down as long as we were, in the sense that we couldn't serve alcohol or they couldn't gather here. That all got dumped out, and then the county the state allowed us to open for about 7 days. So we retool, we order new food, we order new beer, we order new wine, to have that all go to waste again. I would hope that maybe there's a credit line somewhere in the stimulus package allow us to take a credit for all the stuff that was wasted. There's quite a bit on my end.
Okay. Eric, anything you want to add?
Well, I guess, when all the stuff came out, there's confusion. Is it going to be forgiven? Is it going to be an actual loan? My view is when you get in trouble in life, you don't borrow money.
Right.
And I'm pretty adverse to borrowing money. I think, if you have things that are going to be productive to grow your business and it all makes sense, then you can borrow money. If anything new came out and it wasn't sure if it's a grant or a loan, I personally will probably stay far away from it if I know I'm going to have to pay it back. And all I'm doing is basically using that money to keep my business afloat. I feel like for me, there's probably other avenues, but that's just my 2 cents.
Rick, you want to add anything?
I think Dave and Eric did a great job covering that, and with the guidelines being so unclear, it's kind of hard to talk about a repayment plan when you don't know what's coming up, but I think they always covered it pretty well.
I think you guys covered most of this already. I just want to ask about the experience. I don't want to get into any details on who got what, but Eric, I'll start with you. How was your experience in the lending arena during this time?
Well, first of all, I happen to know this guy who I could talk to on the phone. His name is Keith Brice, and he was a very valuable tool this whole time because there were a lot of questions, there were a lot of unknowns. And Keith, you helped me a lot in this whole process to understand, what might or might not be happening. I ended up doing both the PPP and an EIDL. I used some of the EIDL for the dire equipment needs that we needed, as well as to pay off some older, higher interest loans. And the PPP, of course, went to payroll. It was pretty easy. We didn't jump on it right off the bat, but once things were a little more crystallized, it seemed like a good idea for our business to do it, and that's what we did. So it was shockingly easy for how many people had to do it. I know it wasn't easy at first, but when it all shook out, it worked.
David or Rick, you want to handle any of that?
I'll just add quickly that, again, I applied for a PP loan and also a Kern Recovers loan, both. The only very simple to fill out, this waiting the time frame, it took roughly about 45 days to 60 days to get an answer that I was going to get funded. Because just like Eric said, I'm not going to go borrow money to keep my thing afloat. I'd rather shut down and reopen once business got back to normal. But anyway, the amount of time it took to get the answer that you were accepted, that was the only thing I'd like to see different.
Okay.
Yeah, and personally, I personally don't handle this part of our business, so I really can't speak to this. But what I did hear from other business owners is there was kind of a mixed bag of challenges. And I think Eric and Dave kind of touched base on those items.
Perfect. Okay, here's what I'd like to, and besides, and thank you for the compliment there, Eric, but there was so much confusion out there in the first few weeks. Obviously, besides reaching out to Midstate, what other sources of information did you guys rely on? Rick, I'll let you take that first.
We relied mostly on state and federal agencies in the beginning. We spoke a lot to our local and state elected officials to make sure we're following the correct guidelines. But for us and our organization, luckily we're kind of part of a larger national brand like Taco Bell and Subway. So these national brands would have these daily email blasts with updated information as it came in daily. We'd also have weekly Zoom meetings to discuss processes and next steps. And for us personally, this really helped us get through the early days of the pandemic. But for other small business owners that probably didn't have that type of resource that we had the ability to have access to. That's what helped us.
David?
Like Eric said, listen, I went as far as actually looking at payroll and writing, thinking about writing final checks, but it was the bottom line was having access to you, having access to other bankers in our community, We live in a very tight knit community, so if you're active, it's very easy to know who's who. And man, I just made phone calls to guys that might have information, yourself included, and ease my mind. And again, going back to what I said earlier, knowing that there's a stimulus coming down, I could float the boat for a couple months. So I just put my eggs in the basket that there's something going to come down the pipe, and that's what happened.
Yeah, Keith, I think you struck a nerve here with me on this part. The uncertainty was the hardest part of this whole thing. It was March 15th. It was Sunday when Gavin Newsom said all breweries and brew pubs are closed. And I had customers, we were operating, we were full, come up to me like, do we need to leave now, or what's going on? We were fortunate, we have the California Craft Brewers Association, who is our trade organization. And Sunday night, like an hour after that, they were reaching out to us, helping us understand, what we could and couldn't do. And in fact, we could stay open and we could operate because we were essential and so on. But yeah, that was really challenging. It's like you're driving down the highway at 80 miles an hour and someone turns out the lights and you don't know which way to jerk the wheel because there's just no information. And that, I think, was, and still to some extent has been the biggest failure of this is the lack of a clear message or communication or plan, and just constantly having to change plans. It's just really challenging as a business owner.
Agreed.
Some small business owners, and I think Eric, you talked a little bit about what you guys did, but they adapted to changing their messenger. They did social media, let their customers. What were some of the things that? Well, David, I'm thinking I'm going to start with you. What were some of the different things that you guys started to do immediately in that area?
We normally do 1 or 2 email blasts a week. We made it a point to do one every day with an incredibly good price. I mean, if you're a wine lover or beer lover, we picked an item that we sold at cost. And with the idea of staying in front of the eyes or the ears of the customer, we don't want to lose them. And it's also part of that message was that we are open. We might, for a while there, we were curbside only. You would call in your order, we would carry it out to your car. But finding a creative way to stay in front of our customer base, and we have a loyal one, but every day we would sit around and write up an email and have one staged for the next day. And we had a great response. So we still do that to this day. We send out an email every day, this kind of a lost leader to stay in front of them.
Eric?
Yeah, we kind of had a 2-prong approach because we do have the restaurant and then we have the brewery side of things. And at this point, everyone was kind of locked down, right? So we basically tried to communicate to our locals, hey, we're a safe place to come in and get your food. We started doing family meals and things like that. So you could just pick it up in a tray, take it home, put it in the oven, feed your whole family, minimize your exposure. And then, for the most part, we typically rely on tourists to come in. Kernville only has, less than 2,000 people in it. So for all the people that, we're now locked down in LA or wherever, hey, we'll ship you beer. You can order cans online on our online store. We'll ship it to you. It gets there the next day. That's still in operation, by the way. So if anyone needs beer shipped to them, we can take care of that for you. But that was kind of what we did, for the people here, we'll take care of you face to face and keep you safe. And the people that can't make it here, we'll try to get what you need to you.
Rick, anything you guys do?
Yeah, I have to say, honestly, Kern County was great. There were so many groups started on social media geared towards helping local businesses, buy local, shop local. Kern County has always been a wonderful place that supports local businesses. So, things we did, we put ourselves heavily on social media. We added curbside pickup to all of our sites. This was helpful so customers didn't have to get out of their car, their vehicles in this uncertainty time. And we started actually posting a lot of pictures of our daily specials on social media. Like David pointed out, some great buys. Started advertising chili verde mac and cheese, award winning. We put pictures of it on and hopefully got people kind of getting excited and seeing the images of it. And that actually helped us tremendously. And something actually very basic was just letting people know that we were open. Some people didn't even know that. So just something that basic really made a big impact on the social front.
Good. I think we have a couple more. So for many small businesses, reopening will be like opening for the first time. Is there any advice that you would give them on a reopen?
If I could jump in, and what I would say is, at this time, anything you can do to help improve your business. If there's some repairs you're putting off to do, or anything you could help to make your assets shine, do the things that you haven't got a chance to do before. Because like most small business owners, once we get inside the business, we're busy. We're running, helping everywhere we can. And those things that, we think about taking care of kind of get pushed to the back burner. And I also say, help your customers and employees feel comfortable and safe. Put the appropriate personal protective equipment in place and find a way to get yourself innovative. Make it more convenient for customers to come pick up your product. If curbside being one of them, find a way to adapt. This is a total moving forward. This is the new way a lot of businesses are trying to look at it. And just speaking from national brand point of view, we have a lot of calls with a lot of national brands, and they're actually estimating that curbside pickup will start accounting for 20% of sales moving forward. So I think that, for people that can do that type of a business, I think you definitely want to input that into your repertoire.
David, any advice you want to give?
No. To what Rick said, there's not much. We haven't had to reopen, and I just, with a heavy heart, there's a lot of guys that are going to have a huge challenge when they reopen. Prior to the virus, you just go to work and you put your hat on and you deal with daily issues. But once we kind of got shut down, and I had plenty of staff standing around, I pretty much painted every square inch. I waxed every square inch of my floor. I remodeled the bathrooms. I got on the roof and repaired my roof. I did all kinds of maintenance on my buildings, and with a new looks, with the intention when my customers come, they're going to see something new. But that guy, I pressed through that in 30 days, and now we're close to 180 days into this thing. So I'm out of things to do. Eric,
you want to add anything?
Yeah, I think the main thing is just mentally be prepared. You're going to be in this for the long haul. Yeah. Even if there is, some sort of miracle cure, it's going to be a while. So be very methodical about your PPE, all of your protocols. If you have an employee that gets COVID, then you might have to shut down. So really make sure your employees understand the importance of their social distancing, of taking care of themselves, and making sure that everyone, your employees and your customers, are all safe. And that's just the best you can do. And just be prepared to take some lumps, and hopefully you have a big enough war chest to get through it all.
Mm-hmm. So this is I don't want you to give up any trade secrets, but what was the smartest move you made, as a small business owner during this time? You thought, wow, this worked out. And I'll start with you, Rick.
Hands down, keeping our employees and customers front and center. Keeping their health and safety is kind of our number one priority. Our employees and customers, they are essential for us. And, without them, we have nothing. So we had to make sure that they understood how important they were to us. So what we did, we gave all of our employees a $1 bonus for every hour worked from the very beginning. And, because they're on the front lines and they're working in fear of getting sick, but still performing, because without them, people in our community not have any resources like food or gas or basic necessities. So, making them feel the importance and making sure that they understood that they were our priority really was our best move. And I highly recommend for all business owners to do what they can to help their employees feel comfortable and support them in this time, because, without them, we have nothing.
Eric, anything you want to add?
Yeah, well, I first of all want to commend Rick. That's a great comment. I think what we did to help our business actually happened years ago by just creating a healthy business financially. There's nothing more stressful than not having money as a business. So, we've always kept a very large reserve, and how as tempting as it is to just grab that money and do something with it, we've kept a very large reserve, operational reserve. with the idea that something like this might happen. I mean, I certainly wouldn't have thought it would have been COVID, but wildfires, whatever. So make sure you're financially stable. Make sure you're not over leveraged. Make sure you have money in the bank, so when things do become challenging, you can focus on the problem at hand and not focus on this lack of funds.
David?
Same thing as Rick said. Again, at the very beginning, I made nothing more important than the comfort and the safety of my employees. So we had a powwow, and basically they had a vote just like I had a vote. How do you guys want to handle this? I tried to educate them with everything I knew, and everybody had a minute to take the floor and speak about what they heard about. But long story short, keeping my employees comfortable. They're well trained. We kept them updated, like we've talked about many times in this seminar. Trained them on how to stay safe. Again, the comfort of the customer is going to be reflected in the eyes of my staff. So, and vice versa. So I just keeping my staff, giving them all the hours they had prior to the virus. We've been fortunate to do that. I don't think business is going to be the same. I don't know when this will go away, but business will be done differently. But keeping staff happy and safe was our number one priority.
Well, it's 1 o'clock, guys. I want to give you an opportunity. If there's something you're passionate about that I either didn't ask you or you wanted to say, you have an opportunity to do that right now. Eric, anything else you want to add?
No, I want to say that I'm actually really, really happy I'm in Kern County right now. The banks, the other businesses, they've all been great resources for me and just shoulders to lean on during these, challenging times. And I feel fortunate to be who we are and where we are. And thanks to these two guys on the call with me for all of their insights. I'm going to write some of this stuff down.
Rick, anything you want to add?
Yeah, actually, I'm going to echo what Eric just said. I am very thankful that we're in Kern County. this place of business has been great to us through all of these years, and the good times and bad times. And I really appreciate the community and the way it supports local business and the way it supports just the growth of local business here. So, and also the help yourself, Keith, as well. You've been a great resource outside of this pandemic in general and what you do for the community and our local banks and people. We're very fortunate here and very blessed to be here. And if I had to give any last advice to business owners, and kind of Eric mentioned this a little bit earlier too, is live within your means. It's still uncertainty what's going to happen. We're not sure how long this is going to be around for. So save. If 2020 has been anything but a wake-up call for us, is you have to have reserves. And if you could do this, you could survive. So thank you, everybody.
David, I'm going to give you the parting shot here.
Well, this is what Rick and Eric said. Fortunate to live in a great county that we do. I feel we have wonderful city leaders and supervisors that are on top of it more than most cities in the nation, for that matter. And again, the support of these three businesses, the support we receive from our community is wonderful. But a big part of that, I got to say, for Rick and Eric both, it's because we're involved in the community. We give to the community, but when it's time, we need some support or help, it comes back to us tenfold. So we're just grateful for all that.
Well, thank you, guys. I really appreciate you participating in webinar number 27. We have webinar number 28 next week. Kelly will come from behind the shadows and back into the seat here. Everybody have a blessed day. The ones that there were some questions, we will get to your questions offline. But again, thank you, panelists. We really enjoyed it. Appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody. And keep supporting local, everybody.
Yep.